Today we look at a very well-known story. No parable, no teaching, rather a life-changing encounter in the city of Jericho. You know Jericho? Near the Dead Sea, in the Jordan River Valley, 249 meters under sea level. One of the oldest inhabited city of the world, and a city of green pastures. It had trees in it, a lot of different trees. It was called the Palm City. And there some trade route meets, and in the time of Jesus there were a lot of people in the town coming through, departing, going to Jerusalem and other cities. And there, at this waypoint, Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem. Let's dive into the story. I think you know it. Luke 19, 1-10. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but he was short and could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming the way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has come to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." What a story. Jesus and his disciples met a lot of people on their way to Jerusalem. And for some, he was a VIP rabbi, and they wanted to see him. And this man, Zacchaeus, he lived in Jericho, a chief tax collector. I think he was a billionaire. He was really rich, but he was short. And we hear he wanted to see Jesus, like many in the town. I thought, had Zacchaeus become weary of wealth and started yearning of something deeper in life? We often don't know how people are doing. We see the way they live. We see the money status they show by having special things. But how is their life really? And what is the issue with money? I think it is the danger of being possessed by riches and trusting these things. I know we need money for our daily lives. We have to acknowledge that money does have the ability to serve and to solve many of our needs and problems. But once we begin hoarding, wealth can give a false sense of success, of security. In Psalm 62:10, David claims, "Don't trust in money you have taken from others. Even if your riches grow, don't put your trust in them." It's like a mirror to Zacchaeus. Being satisfied with possessions could bring difficulties in trusting God. And when I think of our world that seems to revolve around money, we see billionaires having power and influence on the lives of millions of people in politics, in trading, and so many things, and often not in a life-enchanting way. What can we do about that? I think we can pray and look into our own attitudes with money. I think it is vital that we deepen our relationship with our soul and bring it to bear on our relationship with money, to have a good balance with it. In Zacchaeus, we can sense the desire for a different life. He wanted to see Jesus. That was important for him. So he ran ahead of the crowd. You know, in the East, it is unusual for a man to run, especially for a wealthy government official. Yet Zacchaeus ran down the street like a boy following the parade and looking for the best spot. And he did what he could to overcome his handicap by putting aside his dignity and climbing a nearby tree. Zacchaeus was motivated by curiosity that day. Isn't that a sort of preparation for faith? Being curious about Jesus, about faith, about God? Isn't that a good preparation for salvation? We read, the curious, seeking man became found. Hidden on the tree, Zacchaeus thought he was seeking Jesus, but Jesus was looking out for him. That's funny. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Hey, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. I must stay at your house today." We sometimes talk about, "I found Jesus." But who finds whom in the matter of salvation? Do we invite Jesus into our lives, or does he invite us to come to him? That's an interesting point. Zacchaeus acted on his spirit's motivation to see who Jesus was, but it was Jesus who saw him behind the leaves of the tree. And Jesus understood his inside spiritual need. Jesus saw his heart. He simply saw Zacchaeus as a precious human. You know, Jesus had already met a lot of tax collectors, and he knew how lonely and displaced their lives could look like. And then Jesus said that he must stay with Zacchaeus. He did give no reason. He only stated it. And Zacchaeus, he felt so driven to Jesus. He came down, and they simply have seen one another and connected. I think Zacchaeus no longer wanted to be distant to God. Distant, hiding and watching from the distance this Jesus coming by. Luke tells us that he, Zacchaeus, seemingly without any sense of embarrassment of being caught in the tree, hurried down and was happy. He smiled perhaps, he was glad that he was found. I always thought it's funny, Jesus invited himself to the house of Zacchaeus. What an honor in that time to host a rabbi. That was special. And so without hesitation, Zacchaeus welcomed Jesus into his house. The famous rabbi came to him. What an honor. The interchange between Jesus and Zacchaeus happened openly in the crowd. Perhaps the house was open as well. And some began to mutter, "Look, he has come to be guest of a sinner." Once again, the label sinner, easily applied to a tax collector. The people thought this is a person that's far away from God due to his profession. But in this situation, Jesus acts differently. He is focused on this one person. He comes near him. And that's incredible. The others stood aside and gave him a label, and Jesus said, "I want to come to you." And then Jesus is once again quite serene and cheerful in the company of the so-called wrong people. We don't know what they talked about, but they simply had time together. And God is near when we have time together. God is near us in our lives. Jesus is with us every day. Today, he told us so. He is with us in every situation, inside and outside. Even at work, he is in us through his Spirit. Are we aware of that every time? That he is near? That he sees us? That's a diamond I want to hold as a precious gift to see and remember myself. He is here with me in this. And you know, Zacchaeus knew he could not remain the way he was. It's interesting. Jesus did not say, "You have to do this and that as well." No. Zacchaeus was touched by Jesus' presence. And Zacchaeus trusted this Jesus, this rabbi, and responded to his gracious attitude towards him. So he said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Wow. That's a lot. And I think it took time to do that. Having trusted, Zacchaeus gave the evidence of his faith by promising to make restitution to those he had wronged. He knew and was sure what to do, but it was not easy. Zacchaeus' commitment appears to mostly be a result of encountering Jesus. He said, "I will do that." Perhaps he smiled at that and was glad to do this. Saving faith creates a living union with Christ that results in a changed attitude, a changed life. And so Zacchaeus is being made righteous by God. And through that internal work, Zacchaeus is ready to live justified, bound to Jesus, and see things through his eyes. Not only his mindset was changed, he not only thought, yeah, I must think differently, but he did something different. And it was not a small deal, it was a big deal. His salvation through encountering Jesus sets him free, free to be related to God and free to put things in order. You know, acting changed can be costly or humbling, but it frees the spirit and takes great steps in healing relationships, in healing situations. We don't know if he changed his profession, but perhaps he did work differently. And at the end of the passage, Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because of this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." How does salvation come? First, Jesus sees into the heart and the need and the longing of humans. He knows exactly why he came. He knew why his work on earth was so important. We read this passage on Philippians 2. He came to seek and save the lost. And he sees us, each and every person, as precious and worth for salvation. So salvation comes with his love and prevenient grace. God constantly is reaching out, offering new life. Let me tell you a story of our times. Yuruf was born in a country in Sahel zone. He grew up in a Muslim family. He went to university studying law and became an important Islamic teacher. Over the years, he wanted to fight for Islam. So he was in Libya to attack churches there. He planned a lot, but someday ahead of the first attack, in his dream there was a very bright man with a golden crown. And this person called out to him, "Yuruf, Yuruf, go and meet with the Christians. Go home and trust me." Yuruf was confused and shouted in the dream, "Are you out of your mind? Do you know who I am? Becoming a Christian?" The conversation lasted even longer. And in the morning, Yuruf woke up as another man. He laid down his weapons and went home. His companions were really angry at him. And then in his hometown, he looked for a church first. And there he had the possibility to talk to a pastor, and he could ask a lot of questions because everything was so new for him. And there he gave his life to Jesus. He was amazed about Bible words speaking about the unending love of God. He never heard of that. And he found this love. He found a true relation to God, who came to him and spoke to him. And like Zacchaeus, Yuruf received the most expensive gift of the world, eternal life. Childrenhood in God's family. What a blessing. And so I invite us all to be curious, to be open for Jesus, to welcome him in our lives and be aware of his presence each and every day. And that we are aware that he wants to transform us, to liberate us from things, to liberate us from possessions, and give us a life out of God's riches, his love, his mercy, and his overwhelming grace. That's salvation. Amen.